Hey there, mamas, and welcome back to Knit Your Stress Away. I am Nadine Medina, your host here on the podcast, and today is another Knit and Chill Friday. Can you guys believe it is November? I can't. I'm having actual trouble here figuring this out and why it's going so fast this year. I feel like we literally have just been here. And real soon, actually, the Knit Your Stress Away podcast is going to celebrate the first anniversary. I can't believe it. It's coming up in January, so I'm going to have some fun stuff planned for that. But until then, let's talk about a quick tip today that I have for you, where we're just going to talk about why you want to have simple patterns when you first start to knit. Let's dive in. Welcome to Knit Your Stress Away. Are you a mom who feels overwhelmed, craving a creative outlet, but unsure where to start or how to fit it into your already packed day? I have dedicated this podcast to help you discover practical, guilt-free self-care strategies through the calming practice of knitting. I'll help you break free from the overwhelm, quiet the noise and comparison of social media, empowering you to pick up your knitting needles instead and embrace moments of rest, creativity, and mindfulness. Hi, I'm Nadine, a mom, wife, and passionate knitter. I first learned to knit as a teenager from my grandmother back in Germany, but for some reason, I put my needles down in my 20s. It wasn't until 2020, when everyone was searching for ways to ease the anxiety of the unknown, that I picked knitting back up, and something amazing happened. I found peace and joy in the cozy, calming rhythm of knitting, and now I'm so excited to share my practical tips and habits with you so you can reclaim your time, recharge, and rediscover the things that bring you happiness. It's time to ditch the endless scroll on social media and focus on what truly matters, your well-being. So if you're ready to take control of your stress, ditch overwhelm and social media comparison, rekindle your creativity, and recharge with a hobby you love, this podcast will guide you every step of the way. Take a deep breath, grab your knitting needles, and let's start creating a life with less stress and more joy, one stitch at a time. Hey mama, are you dreaming of learning to knit so that you can have the amazing benefits of this craft in your life too? You might be feeling unsure about how to start, but I've got you covered. Download my free Essential Tools checklist to see exactly what you need to get started with ease and confidence. If you want knitting to be your new way to relax, I'm here to help you make it simple and stress-free. To grab your checklist now, go to theknittingmamas.com/checklist and kickstart your knitting journey today. Hey, so let's dive into this episode. I know it might sound like a no-brainer that I'm telling you to start with simple patterns when you are a beginner knitter, but I kind of wanted to dig into that just a little bit more and why you want to, in the very beginning, stay away from too complicated knitting patterns. And if you want to ask me how I know that that's not something you want to do, you're welcome to do that. So I have heard this from many moms, but I've also experienced this myself, that you need to kind of strike a balance between, challenging yourself when it comes to this knitting craft and to your journey, but at the same time also pacing yourself and making sure that you are picking patterns and doing things that are in line with your skills at the time, which is not to say that you can't increase and improve your skills as you go, but I am specifically talking to those of you out there who are like, yes, I want to do this. I can see myself knitting. It sounds amazing and it sounds like such a joy to do, which obviously I'm 100% convinced it is. But you also feel like, since you're just a beginner, you want to start slow, but you also want to make sure that you have enough time set aside to actually do this. And the biggest reason why I'm telling you to start slowly and maybe, pace yourself a little bit when it comes to challenging yourself and learning a lot of new things at once is to make sure that you continue doing it, that you stick with it, that you stick it out, that you don't just throw in the towel after 2 weeks thinking, oh my gosh, this was way too hard. I don't want to do this. I can't do this. This is too much for me. This is too complicated or whatever else. I think, and make a note of this somewhere if you want to, but if you are a beginner or if you're not even yet a beginner and you're like, yes, I want to do this, do not overdo it in the beginning. Go ahead and learn how to cast on. Figure out what you need. As a matter of fact, you heard me in the beginning talk about the checklist that you want to download. I highly recommend you do that because it's going to give you like all the things you need. You don't even have to worry about it. You don't have to Google it. Just grab the checklist. Everything's on there. All the links are on there. And those are all my favorite things. So you got that. Learn how to cast on. You can hop over to my Instagram, the Knitting Mom at the Knitting Mamas _. And you can check out some videos that I've posted on there. And then learn the knit stitch. So you want to cast on and you want to learn the knit stitch. You can do so many things with that. It sounds like nothing, but it is truly all you need in the beginning. So then you're going to want to pick a pattern that has something that's a project that is only knitted in garter stitch. Garter stitch is the same stitch knit on either side of your project. So in other words, you knit one row in knit stitch and then you turn it around and you knit the next row, which is the back side of your project. You knit that in the same stitch. There is another stitch called the purl stitch, which you will learn later, but you don't need it in the beginning. You absolutely do not need it in the beginning. And then I do recommend to you that you use, that you make something small. Do not, once again, ask me how I know that this is not what you want to do. Do not grab like a large blanket first or a gigantic cardigan. That's what I did. It was an oversized cardigan. It was garter stitch. There was no decreases. There were no increases. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was 5 rectangles that I had to knit. Seems very simple. And yes, simple it was. But I used a cotton blend, so it was really thin yarn, and it was just a large project. A cardigan does take time. And if you're not, a knitter who has been doing this for, months, maybe even years, and you knit every day and you are faster at it, it can take a long time and it can get kind of boring after a while. This is not to say that that's not a great project for mindless knitting, which we talk about all the time here on the podcast. You want to have a couple different ones going, where one is, where you challenge yourself a little bit more, you focus on it, you have to maybe learn something new at some point, but you will always want to have that simple project, that simple pattern that you can fall back on when it's not a great day, when you just need something to decompress and you sit there and you're like, you know what, I don't even really need to look at this pattern. I can just start knitting and feel that stress relief come over you and just feel the benefits of the craft without having to figure out a pattern and a complicated thing and things like that. And, Googling things to make sure that you know how to do a knit stitch or whatever, like a pattern decrease or whatever it might be. So stick to the simple ones. But again, if you are in the very first steps of doing this, if you haven't even cast on anything, make sure it's something small. You can do a little dishcloth. Super easy. You can do a very small infinity scarf. 2 loops around. You can find those anywhere on Etsy. Super easy to find. Just put in garter stitch infinity scarf pattern and you can find all kinds of different ones. You can make a small headband, also very, very easy. It's basically a long rectangle and then you twist it around. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't twist them around, and then you stitch and seam them together. Very, very quick project. So highly recommended for that first, yes, I made it. This is what I do. I can make stuff, and that, that feeling of accomplishment that you get from making your very first project. All right. I hope this is helpful to you guys. I would love to hear from you too. If you leave a review for this podcast, I actually read them, of course. It's amazing to see, that you guys are enjoying this, but let me know what you particularly enjoy. You can also hop over into our Facebook community at www.theknittingmamas.com/group, and you can get in there. Real quick, I want to give you an update, of course, of what I am currently knitting myself. Right now, I actually kind of moved a little project in between the ones that I'm already making, which I've been talking about, still working on that sweater as well. But I have also started and almost finished a beanie for my husband. It was his birthday a little while ago, and I Currently still putting the finishing touches on it. You can always go to Instagram and see the progress of my projects, but I'm also posting it into the Facebook community. And to let you know, the beanie is also from Two of Wands, one of my favorite designers. You hear me talk about her all the time because her projects are simple, but unique. In other words, she has this great way of making something look stunning and amazing and completely unexpected with very simple techniques. So highly recommend her projects or her patterns. And this one is a very stretchy and squishy beanie pattern. So it's knitted in a pattern called 2x2 rib, which is 2 knit stitches and then 2 purl stitches. And you just kind of repeat that the entire time. It is knitted in the round, so you will need a circular needle for that. I use circular needles for everything that I knit. If it's flat or if it's round, it doesn't matter. I highly, highly recommend using circular needles. This might be another episode. Just thought about that as to why I love them so much. But for a beanie, it's not recommended. It's actually necessary to do it on circular needles so that you can join your project in the round, and then you just can continue knitting in the round, and it just almost knits up like a little tube until you get to the top part where you then decrease and tie it together in the middle so that it becomes the top of the beanie. It's a fun project to kind of put in between. It is mindless until you get to the crown part where you have to start decreasing and shaping it. Then, you have to pay attention, making sure that you actually decrease in the right areas. But other than that, super fun little project. I think I'm going to make one for myself in a different yarn as well for this winter season. I'm going to link it up in the show notes so that you can check it out if you want to tackle it. Again, this may not be the very, very, very beginner's project, but I still want to update you on the ones that I'm making because you can cue them for later on in your journey. All right, you guys, that's it for today. I'm hoping that you're having a lovely Friday, and I want to wish you a great weekend. I again want to remind you to go ahead and download the free checklist if you're ready to dive in, get started, but are kind of like, okay, I don't know what to get besides yarn and needles. Got you covered. Go ahead and get your checklist at thenittingmamas.com/checklist. And I would also love to see you in our Facebook community, which is a fun place to hang out. We have polls in there. We have discussions in there. We talk about our preferred, places to knit and all kinds of fun things. And you can, of course, always ask your questions when it comes to knitting, and we will do our best to help you. We also have our next Knit and Chill Circle event on November 15th. It's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 p.m. EST. It's our little monthly event where we hang out together, knit together, and ask and answer questions and just chit chat about life while we're taking a little knitting break together. It's a fun event. We do it once a month. You're invited to the next one, and it happens inside the group. So you have to be in the Facebook community in order to be part of the Knit and Chill Circle. So as soon as you get in there, you will see the event and you can then click join, and we'll see you there. Alrighty, have a wonderful weekend. I will talk to you next week right here on the Knit Your Stress Away podcast. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on today's episode. I hope you're walking away with a bit more inspiration and a few ideas to make your self-care a priority. If today's chat gave you a little boost, I'd love it if you could leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other moms find our cozy corner of the podcast world and start their own guilt-free self-care journey. Thanks again, and remember, you deserve time for yourself to recharge and feel your best. Catch you next time on the Knitting Mamas podcast.